Dear students, I hope that you have gone through the cases that I had sent you on different smaller topics of Unit 2, and I hope most of you have been able to understand them and comprehend them. I had given you the initial introduction of the topic internal aid to construction, and then within it, I discussed title and preamble in one video, and then I sent you uh, case laws which covered certain other topics like headings, marginal notes, illustrations, punctuation marks, and so on and so forth, so that you are able to read it quickly and we can complete as much of the ground as possible, because as we know we have very limited time. Today's video I want to discuss one part of internal aid, which is proviso, and what is the role of the proviso in interpretation and how proviso is to be understood. In Vishesh Kumar versus Shanti Prasad in 1980 AIR 892, the question of the role of proviso came up, and what happened in this case, a proviso was added to section 115 of the Code of Civil Procedure, which provided that in respect of cases arising out of original suits of any valuation decided by the district court, the High Court alone shall be competent to make an order under this section. So basically the substantive parts of CPC section 15 provided that when there is when there is a revisional order passed by the district court itself, then it was expected and it was provided in substantive provision that the appeal will not go to the High Court. The High Court will not sit in its revisional jurisdiction over the revisional order of the district court. However, with this proviso, confusion was created and a problem of interpretation was created, because it provided that the High Court will have jurisdiction, it will be competent to make an order on an original suit of any valuation. And under the provisions of Civil Procedure Code, you know that pecuniary jurisdiction is divided. If the valuation of a suit is less than a particular amount, then it goes to Civil Judge Junior Division. Above a particular amount, it goes to Civil Judge Senior Division and to the District Court. And the orders and judgments passed by the lower courts, subordinate courts, they can be revised by the District Court. And if the valuation crosses a particular amount, then the District Court itself can decide, pass an order or judgment on that suit, and then High Court will have the jurisdiction to revise it. But with the addition of this proviso, confusion was created and issue was framed whether the High Court possesses revisional jurisdiction under section 115 of the Civil Procedure Code in respect of an order passed by the district court disposing of a revision petition. So if a revision petition is filed before a district court and the district court has disposed of revision petition, will it be competent for the High Court to again revise that revisional order of the district court? The Supreme Court in this case held that High Court is not vested by virtue of this proviso with revisional jurisdiction under section 115 of Code of Civil Procedure over the revisional order. What the proviso does, the court explained further what the proviso does, that in case an original order is passed by the district court, in the sense that even if the valuation of the suit is less than a particular amount, irrespective of the evaluation of the suit, if an original order has been passed by the district court, then revisional jurisdiction will be vested in the High Court. High Court will be competent to revise that order. So district court may pass an original order either because the valuation of the suit crosses a particular amount, in this case it was 20,000 rupees, or in a situation where a suit which is valued less than rupees 20,000, but it was transferred to the district court, and then district court ended up passing an original order or original judgment in that case. So, as against those original orders or judgment, irrespective of the valuation of the suit, the Supreme Court will have revisional jurisdiction. That is all the proviso did. Proviso did not say, proviso could not basically disturb the entire scheme of small causes code and the civil procedure code, whereby a division of sort has been made of revisional powers. So, if the valuation of a suit is less than a particular amount and the order has been passed by the subordinate court, civil judge junior division or senior division, and the revision order has been made by the district court, then it is not an occasion for the high court to intervene, because then the entire scheme of division of revisional power between district court and the high court will be destroyed. So, suits of less than a particular amount, with respect to them, revisional order was to be passed by the district court, and suits which cross the threshold of rupees 20,000, revisional order was to go to the high court. However, the proviso tried to incorporate all those situations in which district court, even though the valuation of the suit is less than 20,000, ends up passing an original order and not a revisional order. And in this case, in the entire process of explaining the role of the proviso and with respect to the scheme of revisional jurisdiction, Supreme Court observed that a proviso cannot be permitted by construction to defeat the basic intent expressed in the substantive provision. So you see, proviso is in a form of an exception. So proviso cannot go on to destroy the basic intent expressed in the substantive provision. In that sense, the role of the proviso is very similar to the role of exception, on which I have sent you a few cases to understand. Another case in which role of the proviso came up for discussion before Supreme Court is Union of India versus Sanjay Kumar Jain. In 2004, Supreme Court discussed the role of proviso, and it in this case, Union of India versus Sanjay Kumar Jain, Supreme Court said that the normal function of a proviso is to accept something out of the enactment or to qualify something enacted therein. But for the proviso would be within the purview of the enactment. So if function is that if something which is accepted or which is created as an exception by virtue of the proviso, in the proviso, if that proviso was not there, then the situation would have already been covered by the enactment or the main provision. So the role of the proviso is to exclude elements or situations or circumstances which are covered by the proviso. The proper function of proviso is to accept and to deal with a case which would otherwise fall within the general language of the main enactment, and its effect is confined to that case. And in the process, Supreme Court went on to observe that normally a proviso does not travel beyond the provision to which it is a proviso. So it has to be read in the light of the main provision to which it is added. It carves out an exception to the main provision to which it has been enacted as a proviso and to no other. It will not become, for example, proviso added to section 25 will become an exception to section 21. Proviso has to be read with the main provision, with the main section to which it is appended. And the ordinary and proper function of proviso therefore is coming after a general enactment is to limit that general enactment in certain instances. So the general provision, the substantive provision could be of much wider in nature and scope. Once you have a proviso which creates certain exceptions for certain circumstances, then they will not be covered by the main provision. And therefore it is very natural that a proviso to a section cannot be used to import into the enacting part something which is not there. But where the enacting part is susceptible to several possible meanings, then the role of the proviso increases. If the main provision itself is not very clear and it can be interpreted in variety of ways, that's when the proviso becomes more important and it starts having an influence on the main provision also, but that is a very rare situation. Another case, a very recent case, Union of India and others versus Dilip Kumar Singh in 2015. Supreme Court had the occasion to interpret the role of proviso with respect to the Persons and Disabilities Act, whereby the equal opportunities and protection of rights and full participation of people with disabilities was enacted, and a proviso was added to section 47 of the said act. In this case, Supreme Court observed that it is a settled law that a proviso does not travel beyond the main provision to which it is added. Therefore, Supreme Court said the golden rule is to read the whole section inclusive of the proviso in such a manner that they mutually throw light on each other. Do you get the point? Proviso is to be read in such a manner that it goes on to throw light on the main provision, and main provision should throw light on the proviso, and a harmonious construction should be sought to be achieved. But I know it's very difficult. How do you achieve a harmonious construction with respect to the main part and the proviso, which essentially is in the nature of an exception to the main part? How do you harmonize? But that's what the Supreme Court observed in the present case. It further observed, of course, that a proviso must be limited to the subject matter of the enacting clause. It is a settled rule of construction that a proviso must prima facie be read and considered in relation to the principal matter to which it is the proviso. It is not a separate or independent enactment, and these words of the proviso are dependent on the principal enacting words to which they are attached as a proviso. They cannot be divorced from their context, and the context is that proviso is added to the main provision, and it is trying to, in a way, exclude the application of the main provision from the circumstances which are covered by the proviso, and without the proviso these circumstances would have been covered by the main provision. Alright, so that another last observation which I can discuss with you. Supreme Court said that to expand the enacting clause inflated by the proviso, since against the fundamental rule of construction that a proviso must be considered in relation to the principal matter to which it stands as a proviso. So Supreme Court in this last observation which I am referring to is, in a way, is trying to say that if the proviso is used to expand the scope of the main provision to which it is added, to inflate the meaning or role or scope of the main provision to which the proviso is added by reading the proviso into the main provision, that would amount to a sin against the fundamental rule of construction with respect to proviso. Proviso cannot be used to expand the scope of the main provision. That's not the function of the proviso. Supreme Court said that it amounts to a fundamental sin of construction. So at best, a proviso order is a proviso added to the section. It is creating an exception, and the golden rule is to read the whole section inclusive of the proviso, and in such a manner that they throw light on each other. What are the circumstances which are covered by the main provision and what are to be covered by the proviso? That I think that is the thrust of the Supreme Court judgment in this case, that you have to read the main provision along with the proviso and try to understand what are the situations which are excluded from the main provision, and the proviso cannot really go on to expand the scope of the main provision, and the main provision can throw light on the exceptional circumstances which are covered by the proviso. So that's the brief discussion on proviso. After this video, I would also send, I think, one topic, schedules, role of schedule in interpretation. I will send a few cases on the role of schedules in interpretation of statutes. You know that schedules are added at the end of the statute with reference to certain sections, main provisions of the statute. So a few more cases will follow. It's again a very simple concept. Once you have understood the basic idea behind internal aids, that they are to be found within the four corners of the statute, and these aids are to be resorted when there is some confusion in the meaning of the main part, substantive part, or alternative meanings are possible, alternative readings of the main provision is possible, and there is some confusion, some lack of clarity. That's when you go to the internal aids and try to take help from the internal aid in order to ascertain the meaning of the main provision. Do you get the point? So it is in the light of this general background that different subtopics of internal aid are to be covered. And in the next video, of course, I would try to introduce you the topic of external aids, how they are not to be found within the four corners of the statute, but sometimes they can go on to assist in ascertaining the meaning of words, expression, and phrases used in the statute. Again, I will follow the same scheme, which is first give you the background, the conceptual background of external aids to construction, and then I will discuss a few topics, followed by cases on specific topics, simple cases on specific topics, so that we can cover the ground, as much ground as possible. We know the mail from the Honorable Vice Chancellor has come, and our time is further limited. So for us to be able to cover as many topics and touch as many topics as possible, I think we will have to read certain topics, smaller topics which are not very complex, which are not very confusing on your own. I am selecting cases which are direct, simple, and to the point on topics which throw light on the topic, and so that you are able to frame broad idea how they are used by courts, under what circumstances, for interpretation of statutes. So the next video will be on the introduction of external aids, some topics of external aids to interpretation, and then followed by certain case laws on external aids. And just in case you have any question, doubts, or some problem, some difficulty in understanding the topic with the help of cases that I supply, then you get back to me and I will cover it either in the video or I will respond to you in writing. And this is the only way that we can touch as many topics of the syllabus as possible under the circumstances. I hope you are reading all the cases and you are able to make sense of all the cases and go through and understand smaller topics in the background of this, in the general background of the discussion on internal aids, and now to be followed by external aids. Thank you very much.